Testing. Yep, now it's good. I don't know what's the problem, but the mystery of audio. Testing. Yeah, I think it's okay. Alright, let's get started. And we're live.
Woo!
Yay! So what do we see on Twitch?
Oh, on Twitch it's my face. And your face.
I have the chat window I'm trying to get out of the way. Okay. Alright, that's good. Cool. So thanks Thomas for coming. My first student. Yeah, so I got an email from you and you wanted to talk about NixOS modules. You have
exactly.
an existing configuration and you also have an existing module that you might want to integrate in Next packages.
Yeah, exactly. So, thanks again, Steve, for having me. Really great idea you're pursuing here.
Thanks.
So, I just came across your tweet and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So, here we are. Well, a little bit. I've been using NixOS for 2 years now, or something.
Okay.
And I can get by mostly. I can hack my way around. So for everyday tasks, it's not too hard to just install some software, configure some software. I've been using some home manager, so I've been fiddling around, but I never really have a concise understanding of what I've been doing actually, and I just hacked my way through it, or was very nagging on the on the internet, and then on Reddit or on some Slacks.
Yeah.
Or some friends who are better with this, and I could get by, but I think it's a great opportunity to get some actual understanding and some actual input with a more structure.
Yeah, so I didn't prepare a lot for this meeting, but I know quite a bit about NixOS, so hopefully I can answer all your questions. Should we start with maybe a small recap of what is NixOS, how you can use it, and maybe dive into maybe a bit how it's structured a bit, and then just to give an oversight.
Yeah, that would be great, just to get some entry point.
Okay, let me just share this with you. I don't know if you can. So the problem is, you need to see what I'm showing, but then you're on the stream, but we have some issues with having actually a three-way view of things.
Well, we could use the Twitch chat.
Yeah, I guess. Do you see are you on Twitch right now?
Yeah, I can see us.
Okay. So, NixOS. What is NixOS? NixOS is a Linux distribution that's built on top of Nix. And so I don't want to go too much into the benefits, but basically it allows you to write a configuration file. And instead of other distributions where you apt-get installed and things like that, you have a text file where all your configuration lies. And then you do this command called NixOS rebuild, and you switch to the new configuration, and you can do things like rollback or So by default the config is in etc nixos configuration.nix, and this is a module. We call it a NixOS module, and so I think that's something that not necessarily clear to people is the configuration.nix file is a NixOS module, exactly in the same way that all the other modules are in the Nix packages repository. And a module is structured like that. You have it's a function that takes a number of arguments, and then it has it returns an attribute set.
Mhm.
And that attribute set has three important keys, which is the imports, which define other modules that you might want to import. Then there's the options key, which extends the schema of the configuration. And then config, which actually applies values to the schema that you want to have. So typically in the NixOS configuration, you don't see that. You actually see something like, maybe you have packages just on the top, and then you just have some config like networking that actually, I don't know. I can cut your configuration, that Nix?
Yeah, sure. We can also exactly.
Alright, so you see that the values are not in the config here, and you could actually rewrite this and move it into the config prefix, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a convenience thing, like if it's not imports option or config and you set something else that's top level, it's going to assume that it's part of the config.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't have equals. I could just say implicitly some other whatever things, like let me see. So where's the config part in here? So I've seen the imports, I know, in here.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you could rewrite this where you'd have here. Oops. Oh yeah, I was using cat.
Yeah.
So you could actually. Oops. You could write config equal and then put all of this below inside of the config prefix.
Oh yeah.
And that would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
it's a bit clearer to say, there's the imports, the options, and the config.
Okay.
In practice, you don't really need to do that. If you go in the NixOS modules, though, then you're going to see that they use the three imports, option, and config. So the next thing is you set these values and, how does it work, or how does it apply or merge all the configuration, because as we have here, we have the imports, and the imports are loading other modules that themselves can have configurations.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the key features of the Nix language, which this file is described with. It's a lazy language, meaning that things apply only when you access a thing, it's going to be evaluated.
Mm.
And so you can have a weird setup where this file can set a value, but another file can override the value. And there's a fixed point that's being used, and it's a bit technical, sorry, but basically it's going to loop over all of the files. So just for the mental model, the first thing it's going to do is import all the modules. So the imports is first thing that happens, which is important to know because sometimes you might want to you might try and do something like, I want to import something based on the config. This is going to fail.
Okay. But due to the lazy loading, I could basically import the same thing several times, and they will only get evaluated once I'm using those values that I'm importing, those whatever it is, functions or any values.
Right. So the imports are all imported.
So they are imported but not evaluated.
They're going to be on the next step. They're going to be evaluated for this options, and it's going to build a tree of options that are available. So it's going to recursively merge all of the options that are available.
Ah, I see.
And then on the last step, it's going to actually generate a configuration based on the merge of all of the config.
Ah.
Does it make sense, more or less, or?
It makes kind of sense. It just kind of, so when I have one module, I can have the same names and the same and different configuration keys basically, and import all of them. And in the end, I would have only one config. What's it called here? A record or what it is?
Yeah. In the end, it's going to it's going to merge into one big tree of config.
I could say like I don't know. Let's use I don't know. I have a color for an image or something, like something really weird. And import that from one module, and the size I import from another one module, and in the end the config would have both options.
Yeah. So just an example, let's say you have multiple machines that you want to manage. So you could actually write a command that, here you could have a command.nix file, for example. And then in your command.nix file you would say, oh, it's read-only right now.
Yeah, it's not root.
Okay, let's assume that this is the command.nix file. Oh, and I cannot write. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Yeah, we could also
revert this. So in the command.nix file, you might say something like, actually, you know what? All my machines are gonna. What is it? Right. All my. It's not a great example, but I want to have brightness enabled on all my machines.
Yeah.
And then you would import that in the other file, and then in here.
Sorry, my Vim is a bit messed up.
Yeah, it's fine. And then, so first it loads the imports. So it's going to apply the config from your other file. And then here, if you decide that you don't want it, you can say, actually, this is false, right? And that would override the other value.
Okay. But the value is not even being evaluated at this point. It will be evaluated at the very end of this function, I suppose. And that's why I can override it as widely as I want to until the very end. So.
Yeah, and there's also when you define a schema with the options. So this, why can you set hardware.brightness.ctl.enable is true, is that in the options there is actually a schema that defines that hardware.brightness.ctl.enable is a boolean value.
Exactly.
And it's in Nix packages there's a lib/types.nix that defines all of these attributes, and it includes a merge mechanism. So for example, for lists, it might actually append to the lists. So for example, let's say maybe the networking name servers, if you have another module defining the name server, it might append your name server here to the previous list. And if you don't want that, then you have a feature called lib.mkforce. and that allows you to override the override mechanism to say, actually, I just want this value.
Ah, I see. So,
So
if you use the lib make force, that really forces this value to be set like expressed afterwards and not be overwritten from anything else.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's a bit like the bang important in CSS.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking about right now. Yeah.
So you don't want to use it too much, but sometimes it's, you know.
Well, as I see this now, it's actually, I suppose I should use some different name servers.
Oh, no, it's fine. Google is fine, right?
Yeah, well, but I'd like some IPv6 though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have this config, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to go over what happens when you... So the next thing is to do NixOS rebuild, and that's the command that's going to rebuild your system. You can just say build, and in that case, it's not going to do anything to your system. It's just going to build it. That's it, right? It's not going to change the state of your machine at all. And that's nice because it means you can test that it builds, and at that point you just did a build. I mean, it's just safe, right? There's another command called test. This one is going to actually switch your configuration to this new configuration. But if you reboot, it's going to forget about it. So you just gonna go back to the previous configuration. There's also a nifty command called build VM, and it builds a QEMU image with your configuration, and then you can run it. So you don't actually have to switch your system. You can run a VM and then test your config in there.
Okay, that creates a QML image which I can run.
Yeah.
It would just like copy my configuration onto some, or well, it would evaluate my system configuration and then create a snapshot image out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives you a bit a startup script that you run, and it starts the VM for you.
So. I kind of didn't really catch what this NixOS rebuild test do again. They just like build, try to build my thing.
So yeah, the main command is switch, right?
Yeah.
And switch is going. So let's just work over what. I mean, NixOS rebuild is dark magic thing right now. And I can actually show you what it does, and it's not that complicated. And that's a theme that you find a lot in the Nix world, is once you understand how it works, it's a bit like Git, you know, once you know how the Git works, then you can play with it and you can do stuff, right? So the first thing it does, let me show you something. You have the Nix path, which defines where your channels are, or it defines where Nix packages is, right? So right now it points to your channel.
Yeah.
And you also see there's a NixOS-config that points to etc NixOS configuration, the Nix. So actually, if you don't want, you can even, if you change your Nix path, you can move the configuration.nix where you want.
So I don't have to use /etc configuration.nix, so I can also put my Nix path wherever.
Yeah, in your Git repo, typically, right?
Alright.
So you could have...
That's something people usually do, or...
I think it's, well, when you start, you don't know about this, and then once you learn, I think it's a natural thing to do. Because you could do something like... I don't know, like your configuration.nix would be hostname.nix, right? And then in your repo, you just have a bunch of files for each of your machines that map to each machine.
Yeah, exactly. So
And so in the HackMD documents, Ryan says, "Does the chat work? I don't see my messages." It does. Just gonna ask how is the audio.
yeah, it's actually a good idea.
I mean, the course is really for you, but then if other people can follow, it's nice. So, when you do a NixOS rebuild, actually, what it does a Nix build, Nix packages, NixOS system. So, I mean, there's a bit more complexity in NixOS rebuild, but essentially, what it does, it runs this command, and that's your new configuration. So in here, you have all your software, and then at the end, when you do the switch, it's going to simulate this into the run current system. Right?
I see. Yeah, this is. Oh yeah. Okay. So the next build we just did has just been built, and if we would now do a rebuild switch, we would also get this piece we just built, basically.
Yeah, and so the next step is to create a link from this output to a profile.
Mm-hmm.
So in Nix var Nix profile system, you also have, that's all your generations. So profile, it creates a GC root, meaning that if you garbage collect your system, it's not gonna remove your system config. And it also keeps previous versions, so you can reboot to a previous version. And so that's the second step, is actually create this symlink. And then at the end, it runs a switch to configuration. And this, so that's where you pass the switch. If you do this, you're going to switch to this configuration.
Oh, okay, and that's just it. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that's it. Alright, so now I think you see a bit more about how things are composed.
Yeah. Basically a bunch of symlinks.
Yeah, Nix is basically a bunch of symlinks. I think I'm gonna tweet that later. Cool, so I think I'm finished with sort of I wanted to go a bit in the details of how NixOS works. So I don't know if you have any questions.
So, basically, to recap, we have Nix modules, and evaluating those Nix modules gets some sort of build artifact outwards, some sort of output. And with NixOS, so we basically say we're gonna configure our whole system with those modules.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose we have some special modules, like in here you can see in the HackMD, networking, hardware, specific stuff that we can just work with to set up some more in-depth system things, as well as just use it as a classic package manager and say, okay, packages, and have some modules to manage packages.
Mm.
And yeah, in order to work with that, like we have some apt-get update and install. Instead, we have some NixOS rebuild commands and build commands, and yeah, that basically does the actual installation of things. A nice benefit we have that we can test and build things before we actually install them, switch to some sort of, so instead of installing something, we kind of switch the whole system to a state where the thing is installed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And even better, you can also do it for a remote machine. So I didn't talk about this before, but actually you can do something like --target host, and then you put another machine, and it's going to switch that machine to your configuration.
Oh.
So you can even deploy, if the other machine is already running NixOS, you can deploy the configuration to the machine.
So, but then when I use a remote host, it would use my Nix path set configuration.nix.
Right, so you would like to do something like, remote host at Nix or something.
Exactly, yeah. So that would be like, I have a whatever, if we have something similar like Ansible or some configuration management tools, we have some files for each host, and like this I could say, okay, I just changed some installations on a remote host, and this is how I would send it off, basically.
Yeah. So then you have one Git repo with all your machines, right? And you can even share config between the machines easily. So you can do things like, all my servers have OpenSSH on them. So you create a Nix server.nix that you import in all your server configs.
Nice. Oh. What I did so far is when I was toying around with a small VM, a small VPS, I just git cloned everything and copied the file actually to /etc nixos.conf configuration.nix.
Yeah.
So I had a small shell script which just like would look for something hostname.nix, like similar to what you just echoed up there. And then copy that hostname.nix to etc configuration.nix. So this seems way more straightforward now.
Yeah, so there's a downside though, is that if you SSH onto the remote machine, now there's no configuration.nix in the machine at all, right? You're not able to rebuild the machine itself anymore. So it might be a good thing or no.
Well, the machine itself doesn't have anything with it, so I suppose it depends on what one wants with their machines.
Yeah, exactly. If you have like a dummy server, you just want it to be running some things.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Any other questions or?
So, yeah, with the inputs to the configuration.nix, we have this in HackMD. We have so configuration.nix itself is just a function, and we have inputs config, lib, packages, modules path, and a wildcard as you whatever additional inputs might be able. Where do those come from? I mean, somewhere, somehow, there must be a root of all things.
Right. Okay, let's go into Nix. I think at this point you would actually look. One thing that's quite common is to do a git checkout of Nix packages. I don't know if you have one already or.
No, I had one once when I was toying around a bit with overlays, but yeah, I kind of weirded out my system a lot. So.
So it's a bit like. So channels are good to get started, but it's a bit like I told you about the moving the configuration.nix. You quickly end up having your own Nix checkouts, Nix packages checkouts. And the reason is that you might want to control which version of Nix packages is running on your system and on the remote machines.
Yeah.
And if you do a next channel dash dash update, which is the default, so right, I guess I need your password.
I'll take this out.
Okay, so that's our channel, and if we do an update, it's going to fetch the latest version of that channel. So you don't know exactly which version it is, right? It depends on when you ran the command in time.
Yeah.
But for now, let's just pretend this is a Nix packages checkout.
Okay.
And so do you remember we said we next build the Nix packages / NixOS. So it's actually this file. And here you can see the configuration is actually either loading from the NixOS config environment variable or the NixOS-config Nix path. The system is the current system. And then there's this bootstrap where there's the eval. And
so VM config is used mostly for build VM then.
Mm-hmm.
That's also what it is. So VM with bootloader is also an option. I see. So the eval is basically what starts most of the things.
Yeah, eval is the heart of this, and then it re-exports the system, which is actually the value of the config system that's built at the top level. And that's just another value, actually.
Okay.
And then the VM is the result of VM config, that system that built that VM. And if you use the next REPL, you can do /config. No. That. Oh, sorry. I need to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you can actually explore. For example, you go in config. So what time did you set? Europe, Amsterdam. You boot. You know. So with Nix REPL, you can actually explore the config that you have.
Oh well, the whole system config I have. Yeah, that's actually quite cool.
If you want to figure out, did I set this value or not?
So can I also raise something like setup packages, and I see what kind of packages I have installed, and see what kind of C shell. So those are the ones I have, like we imported that with the import Nix packages, and those are the ones currently being on my system, being evaluated.
I think it's the, I'm not sure about the packages, but the, what was it, config that environment that system packages, that's the list that you put explicitly. Or that other modules actually appended to the list.
Ah, yeah, okay. So system packages is what I did explicitly, or which had been some dependency to another package I explicitly said I wanted to have.
Yeah, because of the merge semantic, it appends every module that might need something on the system can add to this list. So it depends on if you enable the module or not.
Oh yeah, okay. So environment.system packages is, well, basically what I want to have. And this is the Nix packages I just happen to have here on the system. They could come from anywhere.
Yeah, I think this is the full list.
Yeah.
But it's like an instantiation of Nix packages that you used to build the system. Oops. Sorry.
And then I would find this here. No? Oh yeah, it has some list of other things. So,
So the config is, so if we go back to the list of attributes that are available. Sorry, I need to answer, I guess.
yeah, seems important. No, that's fine. I can entertain our guest, I think.
Allô? Oui? Oui, on est là si vous voulez passer. Vous voulez passer maintenant? J'ai pas bien compris. Ok, bah je serai là. Oui, c'est ça. Super, merci. À tout à l'heure. Alright, I have a delivery in 20 minutes. So, yeah,
I suppose, yeah.
the one interesting thing about attributes is the config one, right? Because config is still being defined in here, but we already take it as an input. And that's because of the lazy evaluation, we can actually access values from the other configs or other modules that set config.
So, mostly, as you said on the second B here, most Nix packages, I suppose, in some sort of all have those three fields, these imports, options, and config.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically gives a nice little pattern of how I can.
Oh, I lost you.
Set shell.config exists, and I can sometimes do some configurations with it. Depends on the packages and what the author of the package basically allows me to configure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah. What is config like before loading our configuration to Nix? Where does it come? Where does that come from? Did we see that in there?
It's probably hidden in the lib eval config. It gets quite complicated in there.
Yeah, I figured that is actually a bit over my head already.
You can see the modules path is set to the current modules folder. So that's a detail, but if you do an import, sometimes you can import things from Nix packages, and people do Nix packages, NixOS modules, and some module here. And if you do this, then it's a bit harder to pin the version of Nix packages. And so the best practice is to actually use modules path, and you have to put a toString here first. Just trust me.
I see.
And then you get access to the same. But this time it's going to use the same version of Nix packages that you're using to evaluate the system.
Okay, so I don't have to hardcode just paths of Nix modules in there. There's also this modules path I could use. So Nix already knows about, okay, there's some modules path. Why you write this, don't bother where modules path is. That's something you can configure with the system itself, like we just mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's an optimization, so it's a bit advanced.
Yeah, because as you see, I have a little module I included from my home path because where I wanted to have that, but I suppose now I have several options. Either extend modules path, I suppose, and add that to it.
So that would be only to access modules from the Nix packages repo.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you don't necessarily encounter this, but there's some modules, for example, in virtualization. If you create an Amazon image, for example, you can load this Amazon image and it sets a bunch of things for you. So this module you see has imports, but it doesn't set any options, it only sets config.
Yeah.
So as soon as you load this, it's going to set all of these config things, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that's why it's not loaded by default. So that's called the NixOS. I call it a NixOS profile module because it only sets config, or maybe you should rename it config module or something.
Oh yeah.
But it's different than other modules, for example.
So as soon as I would just import Amazon image.nix, it would try to evaluate that and execute the config in there.
Yeah, and it's going to set, the file system is going to be this. And the initRD modules that you use are going to be this Xen specific config.
Well, now I suppose why build VM and stuff are so useful, because you don't want to execute such things on your local machine on accident.
Yeah. And there's a project called, I'm gonna write it in the glossary. I think it's NixOS generators, and it's on GitHub /nix/community/NixOS generators. And this project does a bit the same as the build VM command that we've seen before, but you can actually use it to build AMIs or target other platforms. So it takes your configuration, the Nix has an input, and then it includes typically this file, and then it spits out an image that you can run on Amazon or another image on Google Cloud, etc. Alright, so we're already 45 minutes in. Goes really quick. So, I don't know. It's up to you what you want to do.
So since we're now kind of with the basics of the configuration.nix, I'm not sure about the audience, about the viewers. So we can, like, if I was about to install any package, like when I'm used to any other distribution. So that's why I said environmental system packages equals with packages. So there's a lot of, as I understood, Nix is sort of a functional programming language, while also being a package manager being programmed with this programming language. And then you have NixOS, which is even another turtle on top.
Yeah.
Usually, so for me to get around in my everyday life, I just put in a package here, make a rebuild, and I'm done. So, and as I understood you right now, I have config and option. I have usually for all of these. So, is there a way, like, how I can say, okay, I want to have Firefox, but I want to give it some options for evaluating my installation of Firefox?
Okay, let me rephrase. So, when you add a package in this list, all you do is actually bring the it's the package symlink. No, the package output gets symlinked into your system packages, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't configure anything. It's just now you can run Firefox, for example. So that's why you have other prefixes. For example, if you were to put Docker in here, you would just get access to the Docker CLI.
Yeah.
But if you want to have a systemd unit and all of that shebang, then you would set virtualization.docker.enable is true. So that's to find these out. The best thing is to go on the NixOS.org website, then click on the options, and then here you can do some search. I will be right back. I have a delivery coming.
Yeah, sure.
Alright, so I'm back.
I'm back.
So yeah, you would search in the NixOS option, you would say Docker, and you would find the virtualization.docker in here. And also all the other modules options are available.
Oh, yeah.
So
I just wrote something into the configuration Nix, because that's also something I came across a couple of times. Like, as I understand it, this expression here is basically without the typo the same as this here.
Oh yeah.
Just Docker enable. Yeah, that's not an option here. Can you tell me what the benefits are of doing it one way around or the other? If I understood that correctly with the lazy evaluation, I could like also either write here virtualization VirtualBox, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and do things, or just do it another time, like this, which I think I also have done.
Yeah.
So those, in the end, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it just builds a tree of attribute sets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's mostly, I mean, there's no functional difference, it's more about convenience.
Okay.
The nice thing when they're on a single line, then it's easy to comment out without the indent and everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you have lots of different options in the same sub part of the tree, it's nice to able to build that together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't really make a difference. The only thing is, I think if you do, you can't mix them both. Like there's some conditions where you might end up in a situation. If you start doing this, then I think you can't do the Docker that's enable false here, for example. That would be triggering an error.
That's because I already said, okay, virtualization that Docker already has some values, and also Docker.enable has some values. If I would leave out this enable here, would this then work?
I think the issue is, even if you do this, because it builds this part, it might complain. But I'm not 100% sure. just know that if you have an issue, then you just try to move it around a bit.
Yeah. Well,
So-
that's also a
yeah.
nice thing with builds. I can try to build before and see if it just declines.
Yeah, there's no risk. It's just gonna fail during the build. So that was half of the answer of your question. There's another answer which is, what if I want Firefox with GTK 3 or something like that?
Yeah.
So in that case, you would use. So NixOS is built on top of Nix packages, which is the packaging system. And so that is almost another topic where we talk about how do you do overrides and things like that in Nix packages. I think it would be for another, maybe another screencast, but basically here you might be able to do that override, and then here you can override the inputs for the Firefox package. And now you have a new derivation that contains, I don't know, if it's GTK library is gonna be, maybe you want to use another version of GTK, then that would be how you do it. So that's for the inputs of the packages. And then you want to change the output. Sometimes you do also override attrus. And this would be, for example, if you want to change the source to be another version of Firefox or something. So that would be the part where, I mean, we didn't really touch about this in this podcast, but yeah.
I mean, in the terminal we saw the word derivation pop up a couple of times, but I think if I might put it in my uneducated words, a derivation is basically a evaluation of a module, like an output of a Nix build to a module.
Yeah, a derivation is a recipe to be built, and then you access the derivation output is the result of the build process.
Okay. So what we do now here is the Firefox module. We just use that and we override that, and instead of using the default GTK as an input, we reference a GTK we want to have. And for override attrs, I can override basic module attributes.
So that's here we're overriding a package, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of in the universe of Nix packages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We are overriding a package. Of course.
Yeah.
That's why the source key is available and not an options or something.
Yeah, it works a bit differently.
Yeah. So when I have this, I could basically go on GitHub, check in Nix packages, and see what keys are there, and see, okay, I want to just check out a different source of this program. I would go override. So I don't want to override any attributes, any inputs, but I want to go with .override attributes and just override what I want to have to be used differently.
Yeah, that's that's an option.
Source.
So it's nice because you get the binary cache for all your packages, except the one that you override, but at least so you have a choice, to just change some parts of your system. I think, like, if you were to use Debian, for example, doing something like this is a project where you have to fork the Debian package, then rebuild it, and then find a way to, take the build output and put it back into your system. In Nix is just a function call away, right?
Right.
You're just like, oh, I want this package with this other options, and you do it. And now it rebuilds this on the fly as part of the system configuration.
Well, on the other hand, it also means I can shoot myself in the foot, but I would know it beforehand, because, like, let's say I have a big package like a Chromium or something, and I want to override some attributes, make a derivation differently, like have it built with, I think I've seen something with some DRM modules or something.
Yeah.
Then I would have to build the whole package locally again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should talk about this in another episode, but
Yeah.
there's ways to, if you're a company, for example, and you have specific requirements, you can set up a CI that's going to pre-build everything for you, and then you can load things from both the public cache and your private cache. And that way you don't have to rebuild everything while you're doing the deployment, but you can do it beforehand in a CI.
Okay. And the public cache, that's the cache.nixos.org we see sometimes when we run a
Yeah, right. Yeah.
sometimes see cache.nixos.org pop up as a source for my packages.
Yeah, so if you go in the nix.conf here, it's called a substitutor because it substitutes the build output with like a known version. And it's all the cache entries are signed with a public key, while with the private key, and then we have the public key to verify that it's legit. And we have a build farm with a lot of machines that constantly rebuild everything.
So I could set up basically my own kind of cache.nixos.org with my own built, custom built packages. And if I would extend the Nix config with my keys, I'd be able to distribute basically my things, my versions of the package differently.
Yeah.
The chat is asking if they can ask questions.
Can we ask? Sure, go ahead. I think there's a bit of lag between the Twitch stream and when we're talking.
I'll just write back. So yeah, I think we already filled an hour with talking the first 5 lines of the configuration of Nix.
Yeah, wow, that takes a long time to explain everything. So what do you feel like doing?
I feel like trying out to create a derivation right now.
So doing a package, or because initially you wanted to integrate your module as well, but now you want to do something.
That's what I was initially wanted to do.
And so now you're interested in actually packaging something new, for example, or?
So I don't know if you know, I bought a new laptop and it has some LED backlighting, and the manufacturer actually offers a kernel module for running that, but obviously not for NixOS or for Nix.
Yeah.
So I try to hack together to get the sources from GitHub and somehow get that in my kernel, basically. And I managed to get it running. Yeah. But it's not, I don't know about the structure of the modules. So I think I created a module and a package, but I'm not sure whether I structured it correctly and whether or not, I think now would be a good point to somehow put it, maybe if I had a clone of Nix packages, put it in there and then have it be an actual package.
Yeah, sounds good.
So we have questions in chat.
Right, what does the chat say? Is the order important of packages in system packages or has any significance? I think no, because Nix tries to be reproducible, so it tends to reorder things in an alphabetical order, which typically is going to be the order of the hashes. So it's not very ordered, but I mean, it's a bit random. In the end, you get a tree of all the packages. So there is one significance, which is if you depend on 2 packages that have the same files in their outputs, then you might get a conflict, and depending, there's a way it's gonna alert you and say this and this, there's a conflict with the file names. Sorry, I'm not really precise here, but it can fail, or it's gonna prefer one or the other, but you don't really control, I think, which one is gonna come first.
So there is a possibility that a specific order might cause problems, but only if you do something very special.
Yeah,
Usually it's
so
not a problem.
let's say you want Chromium and another version. There's multiple versions of Chromium in Nix packages. If you add both, it's going to conflict because it's going to add the bin Chromium, right, 2 times. But I don't think the order matters. It's more if you have 2 packages that have the same files in their output, it's going to conflict.
Okay. If they would just clash with the paths, they would require to be installed too.
Yeah.
But I could technically install 2 different versions.
So they're both. At the end, we create a symlink tree of all the outputs, right? And so if they have the same bin name, then you can't really. But what you could do is, for example, create a new package that takes the Chromium and renames the binary, and then use that. Then add this to your package set. Sorry, I can't really explain properly here. It requires you to wrap one of the programs, so it has the binary name that's different.
Cool.
So Lumilit says, I have been wondering if you know of any good tools to actually navigate Nix code. Introspection.
Actually also interesting. Yeah.
Last time I worked with it, I didn't find any good way to enumerate the functions available, how to use them, go to their source, etc. So the best option right now is the Nix REPL, but it's not really a good answer. There's also a project called the LSP server. So in Nix community, there's Nix LSP, I think, or RNix LSP. Yeah, that's the one. So we have this language server that's a work in progress, and we need your help. If you know how to code in Rust, I think it would be awesome. This is the idea is that you have a language server is a protocol that allows you to run a service that knows about the language and is agnostic from the editor, and then you can have an integration with Vim and Atom and Sublime and etc. As long as the editor supports this protocol, then you have compatibility. So that's why it's interesting to make this work.
So that's basically like a typed language server. Basically, you can hook up whatever editor to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. LSP is the language server protocol.
Oh, I didn't know about this. That it existed. So I suppose it exists for other programming languages as well already.
There's even a language server for Bash. And so this gives you completion and go to definition and things like that.
Cool.
But right now the best option is the Nix REPL. So if you do Nix REPL and you load the Nix packages, then here you have all the packages, right? And the next version we're gonna have an edit function as well. So you can open the hello package, but right now it's not available. So this will let you. The nice thing about the Nix REPL is you can introspect things a bit. But for example, let's say you want to use build env. So here we know build env is a lambda, but we don't really get the type signature or anything like that. So it's not ideal. So yeah, that's the problem with creating a new language. Is we have to rebuild all the tooling.
Yeah, there's also been a lot of things going on, I suppose, in the last recent times. So I remember, I think when I started, it was with Nix 1.7 or something, and when Nix 2 came, it kind of changed a lot of things, how things were structured.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a very active thing. I kind of like it, and so far it's something new every day.
Yeah, I mean the language itself is 15 years old, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out of a PhD, and then it took a really long time to rebuild everything, because we're changing one fundamental things about the system, which is you don't install in your sol local, but in a hash prefix. And doing that took a really long time, but now I think we're at feature parity with Debian on not everything, but in most of the cases. Aha. That's my primary reason to put off using Nix. In practice, I'd use it like once or twice a year, and if you don't have tools, it's square the dogs every time to scarf something together, which made me eventually switch away. Yeah, that's a fair assessment, I think. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a magic answer for that.
Oh, well, it depends on what you kind of want of it. So as I said, for me personally, I've been using it for 2 years, but I don't diverge too much from everyday usage for a working laptop.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand how someone can get frustrated, or I've been frustrated myself with this a couple of times, and also considered switching back, but eventually I've been too lazy to switch back again, so I just stick with it. I'm stuck with it. And kind of force myself to at least hack myself around. So, but I can understand how that's not everyone's path to happiness, because it can be a bit tedious. It's especially, I mean, you've seen my Vim and my system. It's very hacky and very deconfigured, to say the least, sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should we try and integrate your module with Nix packages?
Sure. If you still have some more time, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, let's do this. So first we need to clone GitHub NixOS Nix packages. Yes.
It looks fine now, so that's for me. So,
Alright, it might take a while.
yeah, I've seen a friend of mine also showed me some time to work with it, and he said he's doing shallow copy only because.
Yeah. But I think we need the history for pushing branches, right?
Yeah. Well, for pushing branches, but right now I'm checking out the actual NixOS Nix packages. I don't know how Nix packages workflow is with Nix with Git. Shouldn't we like fork it, clone the fork, and work with our fork?
Yeah, if you can create a fork on your end.
Yeah, I think I'll do that first.
Okay.
And we can set the remote.
Yeah. I may take a look at the chat in the meantime. So Black Quasar said, if there's a conflict, let's say in the binary name, Nix will throw a warning. Yes, it will. There's a concept of priorities that you can set. I don't know if I can find this for you. So you can see that I agree with Lumi. I want to find out about priorities. I ended grabbing Nix packages. I think there was something like high prior. Yeah. So there's this function called high prior that you have in Nix packages. And basically you would wrap the package that you want to be high priority with that. Let's see if I can build an example. So if you have both MariaDB clients and MySQL clients in your list, then it's going to conflict because they both want to have the MySQL CLI. They both have MySQL in the bin. So here you'd say high prior. And that would give the MariaDB client a higher priority. It will shadow the bin, so the MySQL client would be basically unavailable, which is not super useful. So then the next thing you might do is something like run command MySQL client, and then create maybe a new, that's gonna create a new derivation. And then here you might do yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. Like that. So now you have MariaDB as the main MySQL, and then if you want to call the MySQL client, then you're going to have this real MySQL command in your path. What's the driver landscape like on NixOS? It's pretty good. We have a project called NixOS hardware in here. And if you find your machine in here, then the chances are that hardware support is going to be pretty good. So you can actually load this as a channel and then include your hardware as an import, and this is going to set most of the defaults that you might want for that hardware. Alright, so we have Nix packages.
So yeah, I'm just trying to switch the...
I think you have to cd into Nix packages first.
Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah, no. Okay.
Alright.
We now have a clone of Nix packages.
So, first thing to do is create a branch, right?
So, what should we call it?
NixOS dash and the hardware that you wanted, or the module name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So in here we know that it's going to be in the modules folder, right, somewhere. And we need to find a location for the module. So I think hardware would be pretty good. And yeah, I guess we could put it somewhere here.
Okay. So it's a vendor. It's also the name tuxedo. That's a vendor name. Is there any I don't know, practices on where to put what? I mean, I see Logitech in this folder already here, so it would be an appropriate place to just say, okay, we put this tuxedo stuff in here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the repo that you had.
Yeah.
I can let you navigate it.
So this is what I have right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's working already?
That's working already, yes. I have it included in here, so that's what we see included here.
Okay. Nice.
I just learned a better way of doing these things. And I somehow recognized that there's modules and packages somehow spread it around the Nix packages, and I thought it would be sensible to do something similar. And I have, for example, modules. I created this.
Okay.
And there is this magic here, which I don't really understand.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I created some options because I thought it would be nice to, I don't know, be able to have a default brightness and color for it to set. Yet I also don't know if it's the best idea as I did it right now. So color is a hex value, and I just use a string, and as you see, I do this.
Okay.
Might not be the best idea, especially also this mode. This keyboard has several modes, but we can take a look at this package then I created. That's actually, this is the package. Yeah, there's a lot of to unpack here, I suppose.
Alright, so the package is kernel specific? So that's important.
No, that was playing around. So it should be working with the latest kernels. I'm not too sure. We could look at their.
But I mean, it needs to be recompiled for every kernel that you're going to use, right? If you switch the kernel version, then it's gonna have to be recompiled because it's a driver.
Okay.
It's not a problem at all. It's just a statement.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm kind of. So was that a question whether it has to be recompiled?
No, I was just thinking out loud.
Okay. Because I am actually not sure. So, and I was toying around, and I actually broke my build once because I wanted to have for something different. I wanted to go to a more recent kernel, and yet I had here different kernel, and then the things broke. But
Mm-hmm.
changed that back, and now it should work. And yeah, we could also talk about the things I do here because yeah, I just hacked my way through to get it to work somehow.
Okay.
So
Okay. Let me just think for a second. Okay. So I think the first thing we want to do is to port this package to Nix packages. And that's going to be our first commit.
mhm.
And then in the second phase, we're going to add the NixOS module.
Yeah.
So we take this and, well, actually, let me just record this path. So the first thing is we create a package and it's going to be OS specific for Linux.
Mhm.
And I think let's see if we have some drivers in there. So it's always a good idea to look at other packages to see what they do.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
I think it uppercase R for recursive searches.
Oh, there it is. So in firmware sounds like a good idea. Yep. So copy this. Okay. So it's just a bit of styling. And now that it's in here, we have to plug it into the all packages.nix. So I'm just doing some copy and paste.
I kicked myself out of the chat.
Oops.
So, but I saw what you were doing.
I'm just copy and pasting the thing, and then in all packages, let's search for ZD112. Okay, so we're going to do tuxedo keyboard. Okay. So now, if we're good, we should be able to do tuxedo keyboard. And ta-da, it builds. Well, we don't know if it's gonna succeed, but it found the tuxedo package and it's loading all the dependencies to build that right now.
Oh, pretty neat. Yeah, it's also cloning the source. Well, downloading the source and trying to compile it. Pretty neat. Indeed. Cool.
So, There's a few stylistic issues in the package that we're going to.
I figured that much.
So usually you try to fetch a version,
Mm-hmm.
and here it's fetching a git commit, which is okay, but usually we try to get a release of something.
Mm-hmm.
So let's pretend that this is okay, and it's going to be called tuxedo keyboard init add and then the version. That's the
Okay.
how the way we commit
We would
things.
usually do it. So if there was an actual 0.01 release from the vendor, from the actual software, that would be the better idea to do it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
are you saying there's no release right now?
I am not sure anymore, to be honest. I have to check back again at
Okay.
the URL. Let me just.
Let's have a look. So I'm checking on. I'm going on GitHub right now.
Yeah, me too.
Black Quasar says that tuxedo packages are inherently having stylistic issues. Okay. And there's
exactly that.
0 releases, yeah. So if you encounter that, what you do is you do indeed take the commit, but you put the date as the version.
Ah,
So here it would be 2000. I don't know actually the date of the commits.
the commit I'm referencing, I also don't know.
Or we could take the latest.
We could check through the history. I mean, we have the ref. Just check from when it was.
So this one is from August 26th.
It seems to be the latest one.
And we do it in ISO format because we're good people. Okay, the SHA is going to be broken. So the next thing is to do the next prefetch URL -a tuxedo keyboard .src. What is it?
I think we don't have that in our Nix path or in any channels. Tuxedo keyboard. Like it doesn't exist yet. We just
no, it's because I need to be on the top level.
Ah. Nix packages.
Yeah. Okay.
That's also a neat thing because when I was writing that package, I just tried to build it and I was putting in zeros as the hash, and then I was looking at the error message compared.
Yeah.
This one seems more understandable.
And then instead of cding into the folder, now that we have established the link, we can use NixEdit, so we kind of jump into there. Except your default editor is wrong. There you go.
That looks way better, yeah.
And this. Alright. Okay. So unpack phase, what's happening?
So as I kind of remember, there's different stages in a package. Like unpack phase, patch phase, build phase, install phase, and I think there's also a cleanup phase. I think there's this Nix options site. It's basically similar to that Nix packages site you linked. And I think I was using that to someplace else, some documentation site. And I think they are executed one after another, but in different kind of sandbox environments. And they have this $out, which is supposed to be, I think, the output of the package later on, and the dollar source is where we start from usually.
Yeah. So what you do here is the $out is where things are going to end up once the build finishes. It's part of the outputs. And that's because you have only one output. Sometimes you can have multiple outputs for a package. And then each output gets their own variable. And then you copy the source into the outputs.
Yeah.
And then during the build phase, you change the directory into the outputs.
Yeah.
And then finally, at the install phase, you copy the outputs back into the other, well, in the outputs, yeah.
I just, instead of, yeah. That's because I thought I had to do that because of the patch phase. Because I'm not sure when things are available where. You know what I'm getting at?
So what happens in your derivation, right? Like you specify all the inputs, like the source, etc. And then during the build, you have a sandbox by default, and it's going to unpack. So you have like a work directory, which is /build, if you have the sandbox enabled. And if you don't do this, part, then by default it's going to unpack the source into your current directory. So I think you can just do this, and then here, if you need to patch the makefile, you just do that like this.
Okay, the current directory okay.
Then the build phase, you don't need to specify it because it's going to find the makefile. And then during the installation, I guess maybe they have install targets already. So I'm just gonna go on the website and have a look at the makefile. So they say, because you don't care about keeping the source code, do you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The module itself looks rather simple.
So they have something called kdir, which is the kernel directory, I guess. Or it runs the make into the kernel directory. Okay, I think I better understand. There's some... It looks like the system is made so that you build in place into the target, into your system. It's kind of not clean.
So the next pull request is coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. You just wrote kdir in.
Yeah.
In the thing. So I can override arguments or environment argument variables in this derivation.
Yeah.
Like this.
So every key that you set here is going to be an environment variable into the build. So if you say something like hello, here it's going to be set as an environment variable. And then inside the phase, if you do an export, like export something, that also works. Okay,
and that would also survive the different phases.
Yeah, because they are executed in a single bash and script in the end.
Okay.
But yeah, let's pretend that this package is perfect because I think we need to move on a bit. I will just set the home page here. Oops, what's happening? So maintainers here, you would want to add yourself to the maintainers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna be another commit. Homepage is fine, description is fine. So the thing to do here is look at the other kernel modules packages and see if you find improvements to do. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna revert this. That's gonna be like this. Okay. So I'm just gonna pretend that this is fine. You also in the maintainers you want to add yourself. So somewhere alphabetically if possible, but I see people are not respecting this already. Sorry, I forgot the nickname.
It's Blanky 0230. So BLANKY. Sounds like a commitment.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so this it's not clearly defined what it means to be a maintainer, but basically you're going to be pinged on GitHub when issues come up with the package.
Yeah. Fair enough, though.
So yeah, we try to not accept contributions if the author doesn't want to maintain it, because otherwise someone else has to maintain it for you, and it's not really fair otherwise.
So I'll just put in some details. That one.
A flame war about to start.
About tuxedos and penguins, or
yeah, maybe. I'm quite happy actually that the NixOS community is not really into flame wars and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I had found it to be very welcoming, to be honest, especially for beginners. I mean, this whole session here is a proof of this.
Yeah, man, thanks. It's really one of my goals as well, is to make it. You know, I set up Discourse, for example, because I wanted people to be able to discuss. I mean, I'm just one small part in the machine. Everyone is nice.
Yeah, I recognized you were doing a lot of things in the Nix community, like this Nix packages format project.
Oh yeah.
I guess I'm following the discourse a bit loosely, so yeah.
Yeah, the formatter is finished, and now I need to add it to Nix packages so that people maybe enforce this, right?
Yeah.
So,
cool. I got some homework.
What is the name? Oh, we don't have a standard. I would say maintainers, add Blanky. Sorry, I forgot the number.
Please.
Yeah. So it would logically be. Oh. So this is fix up for head, right?
Yeah.
Now, maintainers goes first. This is fix up. Okay, and we're just gonna do add your module as well. So hardware.
So in the broadest sense, I almost kind of created it's in the home directory.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of created something similar to a Nix package.
Yeah.
To a Nix package.
Yeah, you did most of the work, I think. So here it's a bit similar. So you have this, and now we need to find, there's a module list here.
Mm-hmm.
Tuxedo keyboard. Oops. Okay. And then I think I would improve a bit the module as well. So let me just.
I figured that there might be some things.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been the only one using this yet.
Yeah. So the Tuxedo keyboard is. So before it was using call package, which is a way to fill in all the dependencies of a package, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the default .nix is a function that takes a number of arguments on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And this gets filled with the arguments that come from packages when you do packages that call package.
Okay. So we'll just hand them through to the default .nix function.
Yeah. Basically, it means that you don't have to put the ... for every package, because otherwise it would be a bit annoying.
Yeah, so those arguments like kernel module system, those arguments I'm using at the package, they just get handed through from packages.
Yeah. And it does also one thing, it wraps your derivation so you can override it. So it adds a bit of magic in there. So right now, this is part of Nix packages now. So we can actually load it here. Okay. So the to-do thing. Look at the other hardware. I think there's rebuild for the specific kernel, because you can switch which kernel version you're going to use in NixOS, and then your package is not going to match up to that kernel, right?
Okay. So it would be nice to have an option to inject a kernel version, or should I do that with the package, and in package try to get handed down the packages to the actual kernel version?
I think you can access the config of the kernel version. Oh, you don't have grep.
I have ACK.
Okay. Yeah. Let's have a look at display link. Oops. Yeah, I think it's the end of the stream. Like, I'm starting to be tired, you can see.
Okay, I could like say a kernel packages equals boot.kernel config.boot.kernel packages, and then whoever wants can override the argument to it.
Yeah. So I think we're missing a step in here, is that, for example, EVDI is part of this package set called kernel packages. And so we did it wrong on the other side.
What is EVDI?
So if you go in packages, so in here, EVDI, there's a thing called Linux packages for. It injects the kernel for these packages. And it creates a new code package that is going to inject the current version of the kernel for that package set.
Okay, so in all packages, we have this Linux packages for.
So that line 1600 and 239. And what we want is actually if we put the Tuxedo package in here, it's gonna do the thing that we want. Right.
That would be already be it. That would be able to rebuild it with different kernels. Where did we put it before? I mean, we put it someplace else in all packages.
Yeah, it was filling with the current package, like the default version. But actually, so if we look at other like FaceTime HD,
I disabled the arrow key.
Yeah, good call. So you can see there's the kernel here.
Yeah.
And so for Tuxedo package, we have to use the kernel thing as well.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to be tired.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. We've been doing double the time.
And now it's broken. Where am I? Ah, that's why. Right, because it's in kernel package now. It should be in there somewhere.
Yeah, and then I have to.
Let me just go all the way. So now we have Linux packages here, but actually we can have the kernel directly. Okay. Or basically where we have Linux packages dots, we just remove this. Damn it. Okay, that looks better. So I'm just gonna commit that and maybe stop here, but
yeah.
Keyboard, move into kernel packages, and then here, I think in here you want to use the kernel package, so here to load Tuxedo keyboard from the kernel packages. Alright.
Nice.
Homework. And description here.
Mm-hmm.
To do. And description here. And yeah, I don't know enough about the modes here, if it makes sense to make them configurable.
Yeah, so that kernel module has like 4 modes, like one fancy blinking mode and stuff, and you can, with some key combinations, iterate through those modes.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just the initial mode, which one to load and start.
Okay. So the problem is the more options we add to the module system, the longer it takes for everyone to rebuild their system.
Yeah.
Because all the options are actually loaded. It's only the config that's lazily evaluated.
Yeah.
And
so in the very beginning, it would make sense to leave out all these options because they're not really essential to running the keyboard. I mean, you could use the keyboard perfectly fine without those extra options, since the mode you can change on runtime as well as the brightness. You can also use keys to brightness up and down. The only thing you'd have to either set it manually or change the code is the color for mode 0.
Yeah.
The color is only used in mode 0.
So
anything else is already hard-coded anyway.
It could be part of the documentation which keys to set.
Mm-hmm.
Because the user himself is also able to set the boot kernel params if he really wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not only available to this module, it's everyone.
Oh, yeah. We can document it just up here and say, hey, if you want to do this and that, just set boots the kernel params to this and this.
Yeah, so I would probably put it in the enable. And this, that would be the best place for the documentation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, I think.
Yeah. That's actually a lot to unpack, and I'm actually quite excited to get started on that homework.
All right. Do you want me to check up on your pull request once you're finished?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, so yeah, just add me on the pull request, and then we can follow up, and maybe next week I'll do a little section on your pull request if you're finished.
Sure, if you'd like to have me again. So yeah, thank you again. It's really,
cool.
Really.
I hope everyone enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Bye bye.
Hey.